What you seek is within you. That's the message from the moon, this full moon we have on October 6th, 2025 in Aries. Now, Aries is the sign that takes us back to the core of who we are. It is the first sign of the zodiac and the natural ruler of the first house, the house of the self. And so on this full moon, which is a time when truth comes to light, and we may be prone to observing everything around us, the actual place to look is the one we often forget. Hi, I'm Laura Custo, and I am the moon phase astrologer and your life strategist for rhythmic living. I'm here to help you use the lunar cycles to make sense of the world, to calm down what modern life has become and reconnect with your own inner timing. The moon has a rhythm and it is pulsing through all of us. It's just that we've never been taught to hear it. So in that vein, if you haven't yet, I want to encourage you to go grab my free guide. It's called the Moon Phase Compass, and it helps you work with the moon's monthly rhythm in simple ways. The moon's rhythm does in fact repeat every single month, and there are 4 foundational phases to that monthly cycle. And what you get with the Moon Phase Compass are the 3 simple steps to working with each of those 4 moon phases. This is foundational knowledge, it's simple, and it's free. So go on over to lauracusto.com/guide and grab it. I will also put a link for that at the top of the show notes. Okay, now let's dig in to this Aries full moon and finding the answers that you're seeking right now. The moon is saying that those answers are within you, which for so many of us is often the last place that we look. And I would argue that quite a lot of society doesn't know what it means, what it feels like to look within ourselves for our answers. Many of us don't trust ourselves. And that's not a criticism or a dig on anyone. It's just not something that mainstream society supports very well. Or let's say supports it openly. We don't talk about it. And also in my experience, it's a rite of passage to learn to trust yourself, because learning to trust yourself is it's a bit like working out. So if you haven't been, say, physically active for a while and you start to feel weak and out of shape, but if you do start to work out and you start to use your muscles, you start to feel stronger. And so it's similar with your own inner knowing and discernment, because if you don't use it and you don't use inner wisdom or practice it or look to it for guidance in life, you're going to look to others around you. And a lot of us do that. We look to the media, we look to our friends, or just anyone, any random person on the street even sometimes. So, it can be a bit unnerving to simply jump right in and decide on a whim, hey, I'm going to trust only myself today. But we can ease ourselves into this, and the moon is there to help. And actually, I think this Aries full moon is giving us the guidance that we need. So here are the 3 steps that we can follow on this Aries full moon to find our answers to whatever it is that we are seeking answers to. So number 1, first step, is to find your place in the cycle. I say this a lot with a lot of my step 1s. It's akin to getting your bearings. So the full moon is always a culmination point, and it will build off of 2 previous moon phases. This particular Aries full moon is happening at 14 degrees of Aries. It's almost smack in the middle of Aries. And there are clues to look back to as far as the things in life that are presenting themselves to you right now that are linked to 14 degrees of Aries. Specifically, the last time the moon had a first quarter at 14 degrees of Aries, and the last time it had a new moon at 14 degrees of Aries. And they're going to be 9 months apart from October 6th and from each other, because that's called the lunar gestation cycle. And isn't it interesting that the moon, the body above the earth that governs our emotions, is cycling in 9-month cycles, the exact amount of time that it takes for us to gestate human life. So these dates that you want to look to, the last time we had a new moon in Aries was 18 months ago. It was around April 8th, 2024. That would be a date that you'd want to look back to and see what was your self-talk, what were your new moon intentions then if you were setting them? What was your general attitude and feeling about your life? That's the number one thing that you can really tap into. If you write new moon intentions, I would encourage you to start adding a little, maybe PS below the intention. That's my intention above, and this is how I'm truly feeling right now, just so you have that accurate a sense there. Now, the second date I want you to look for is the first quarter that happened on January 6th, 2025. It was also around 14 degrees of Aries. And what you're looking for around that date are actions that you took. How did you interact with the world? What things did you set into motion or push along in life? First quarters are when we are truly called to operate in the manner that our world encourages us to operate in 100% of the time. It is the time of the month when we're meant to get out there and do something, to move our dreams along. But there's really only 1 week of a month that we're really emotionally supported in doing that. But when that first quarter comes along, there you go, you can work with that energy. But you're going to look to those 2 dates and see what patterns and themes come up. And then notice what's going on this week of October 6th with the Aries full moon, because again, the moon is at the same place in the sky as it was on those other 2 dates. Now, the other clue that you can look to is the area of life that Aries oversees for you in your astrology chart. So if you know astrology and you know your chart, go pull it out, look at it, and find the area that Aries oversees. If you don't know, I have 2 ways that I can help you with that. And the first is through something I call Moon Map. It is a short course that I developed, and it will walk you through some simple steps where you can go through a process and obtain what I call your map, your moon map. And it will tell you what area of life Aries oversees, as well as all the other 12 zodiac signs. So this is a map that you can use forever and ever and ever on every single moon phase every week. So that is at lauracusto.com/map. The other way I can help you is through my monthly membership called Moon Chat. With Moon Chat, I spoon feed you every single moon phase the information that you need to work with the phase based on your astrology chart. So you will pop in your birth details when you enroll in Moon Chat, and before every moon phase, you get an email telling you, hey, we're having a new moon. It's in this sign that oversees this area of your life. These are the dates that are associated to it, and these are the energies at play on this particular moon phase. So again, Moon Chat spoon feeds it to you. Moon Map is something that you can use on your own if you want to work more independently. So I'll put a link for both of those at the top of the show notes if it speaks to you. Now, this step 1, should help you understand your place. Like I said, get your bearings. So what I mean by that is that often when we're looking for answers and we don't know where to start, and we're running around asking other people or Googling answers, right? It's because we feel like there's nothing to stand on. There's nothing foundational that we can lean on. It's like swimming in open water, not knowing which way the shore is versus actually swimming in a swimming pool. And my aim here with step 1 is to have you feel like you're swimming in a swimming pool. You've got a couple dates to look back to for themes that you can look for in each of those dates, as well as an area of life perhaps that you can use to narrow that focus. But either way, a list of themes and things to keep in mind as you go through the next 2 steps. So on to step 2 here. We're going to understand the Aries energy and the energies on this full moon. Now, here I'm going to lean into the astrology of the moment of this full moon. And that's what a lot of astrologers talk about. It's actually typically what they only talk about. Sadly, not many people know or talk about that first step of looking back to patterns that brought us here. In any case, we're going to now dig into the energies present on October 6th. First, we have a long-standing harmonious aspect going on with the outer planets, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. But especially those most outer 3, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Those 3 are super tight on October 6th. They're within a degree, maybe 2 max of each other. And this aspect is going to be present for a really long time, like well into part of 2028. So it's a really great idea to get consciously aware of this energy. Our entire planet will be unconsciously tapped in, which is also a really great thing because it's harmonious. But if more people can become conscious of this energy, that's all the better. Now, what we have with the setup is something that a lot of astrologers are calling the magic triangle. And, I'm actually going to do a separate video on this shortly. So hit that subscribe button and watch for that video because this is so important. Like I said, it's going to last well into 2028. So I'm going to be referring to it often. In any case, this magic triangle is a time when we're being guided to reclaim both individual as well as group power to bring the world into greater harmony for humanity. Oh, crazy beautiful, right? It's also a time for individuals and societies to manifest their desired future, literally manifest it, make it happen by, and here's the cool part about it, by embracing truth, by letting go of fear, and by aligning with goals that are for the good of all. All right, if it's not truthful, if it's based in fear, if it's not for the good of all, it's not going to work. But if it is, it's going to be supported energetically as above. Now, but here's the thing. It's also got this aspect of if you personally are holding on to old victim mentalities, you are going to be challenged to shed them and step into your own power and accountability. So before you can do any of those other really great things, you've got to take care of the within first. And again, this is going to be around till 2028. So if you want to work with it harmoniously and you want to make some really great progress, we've got to clean up anything within us that needs to be cleaned up. And that brings me to the next point on this astrology. The moon is in Aries. I said this at the beginning of the show. Aries is the sign of the self. And ultimately, that's where the moon's message this week about finding answers within is rooted. And it's also present in the harmony of that long-standing configuration because Neptune is also in the sign of Aries, one of those planets in that configuration. So on this full moon, as you are contemplating everything, the past dates from step 1, the area of life, and the astrology here in step 2, a key piece of all of this is this focus on the self, specifically your agency, your sovereignty, both with the outside world and actions that you take, but inwards. What is your self-talk? What are your beliefs? Are you willing to challenge your beliefs? Now, when you think about that last point on shedding old victim mentalities, really lean into that. Is there anything that needs to go? Ask yourself, am I blaming others for my reality? If you can think of anywhere that you're doing that, that is a clue. It's a little red flag that it requires some examination on this full moon. Okay, now I want to be clear. I'm not saying that you can change every situation that exists. That could be true. Sometimes we can change things, but oftentimes we can't. But what we can always change is how we react to what is happening. I see it everywhere, and I think anyone who tries to look for this will be able to see it around them. You can take two people who are subjected to the same situation and the same challenge, and one of them will choose to be the victim, and the other chooses a different path, a path of acceptance and eventual redirection of focus onto what they can control, influence, and impact. The person playing the victim ultimately is only giving the situation more power because they're giving it more energy and more attention. Attention is energy. And by playing the victim, we're just feeding the situation more of what it needs to sustain itself. But when we don't allow that, sure, we may have, or actually we may need to have our initial reaction. That is part of processing. And I've talked about that in previous videos, right? Talked about the map of consciousness where we're going to dip into lower states of fear and anger. Well, we do that. We need to do that to process the emotion. But be conscious that that's what we're doing. We're processing. And then when we're done processing, we're going to choose something else. We're not going to allow that negative emotion to consume our precious life. We're going to process the feeling and the emotion, and then we're going to evoke our sovereignty, our agency. This is Aries energy, and we're going to choose to only allow that situation to take up what it has already taken up. And we're going to move on to something else. Something that is in alignment with love, joy, peace, and what lights us up and makes us a better person. What brings out the best in us. And that's going to be different for everyone. And the point here is that you need to go out on a limb and find that for yourself. What's going to light you up and make you feel at peace is going to probably be different from the other people around you. But when you find it, you can operate in life in a way where you spend most of your time in that space because it's unique to you and you found it for you. It's your truth. So choosing a different reaction, and then over time, through those choices and staying in your positive energy more often, you will naturally attract fewer and fewer of those situations that bring you down. All right, finally, the last point on this astrology is that Mercury is interacting with Pluto in an angle of tension. Now, Mercury moves quickly, so the fact that it happens to be sitting in this angle of tension on this full moon is really powerful. Mercury is how we think and analyze and communicate, and Pluto is power, control, and things that are deep and hidden. And so this angle of tension is something I want you to be aware of, because this will naturally create an energy that will make it hard for you to avoid looking at where you are playing the victim, where you're allowing external forces to dictate your state of mind, Mercury, and your view on life, which is also Mercury's thinking. So Mercury making that angle with Pluto on the full moon is going to help you move through this. So that's so great. And I bring it up because I want you to be aware. Know that you are supported in quote unquote going there, that place that's going to not feel real great to go there. So your natural instinct, just like me, will probably be to shy away from it. That's what we all do. But you're supported. So keep that in mind and don't be afraid to go there. Okay, so that is the astrology. Now, step 3, we're going to practice listening. In this last step, we're bringing it all together. So you've got the clues from step 1, and that's the start of the pattern. Step 2, you've got the astrology, and the big piece of that, of course, that sovereignty we're just talking about, your part, your ownership, yourself. Now in step 3, as you experience this full moon, you use all of that information and you listen. The full moon is the next step in that pattern. And it's all about your sovereignty. It's this culmination point, right? I talk about it. Every full moon is a culmination point. It's not necessarily a time to get out there and instigate and do things, right? That's the first quarter, but it's a time to participate. So in the vein of everything that I mentioned here, what does participating look like on this Aries full moon? Well, as always, it looks like showing up, being in community with others as life events unfold. Full moons are definitely about gathering and being together. It's a great time to plan celebrations, but it's also a really great time to relish in those simple, spontaneous conversations that happen while, say, you're going for a walk in your neighborhood. But also, participating on this Aries full moon also looks like participating with yourself, with your thoughts and observations. Really taking the time to reflect and process what you experience. And of course, asking yourself questions related to those themes of victimhood and sovereignty. And on top of that, going a little farther with some of those bigger themes around a better future for our world. How can you show up as a leader in your life? What does it mean for you individually, to lead? Because that looks dramatically different for everyone. Sure, there are obvious ways that people lead, being big and bold, right? That's stereotypical leadership that we see, and it's been conditioned into our society for eons. But there is also a much more subdued and less obvious form of leadership, one that I would say is growing in presence. And it is a wise sort of leadership that only those who are truly in touch with themselves and those who've done the inner work can exude. And it's in examining these questions and getting closer and closer to the essence of who we are, of who you really are, to the point where you feel it deep within you, where it creates a sense of groundedness and a deep inner knowing of, this is who I am foundationally. Well, that's when you start to trust yourself. And that's when we start to look within for our answers. All the time. It's so much simpler than Googling and asking everyone we know and thinking about, who can I ask? Who can I ask? Once we know that we start within, we start with ourselves, man, we save so much time. It makes everything so much simpler. But it's the self-sourced inner knowing. And it really does surface when we bring all of these steps together. Again, step 1, look at that pattern, the dates leading up to the full moon, right? We have those 14 degrees of Aries, that new moon that we had, the first quarter that we had. Those are your foundational clues that when you see connections to, on this October 6th Aries full moon, your confidence will lift a bit. I've been hearing this more and more from some of my clients. They're seeing the synchronicities over these dates that I'm mentioning. And it's reassuring them. You're seeing the guidance that the moon is giving you. You're in sync and participating with the moon's energy. All right, step 2 is keeping that astrology in mind. Again, shedding victim consciousness, because we have this long-standing harmonious configuration with the outer planets. And again, this is the Aries full moon, about the self. Plus Mercury. Remember, that fast-moving personal planet, it just happens to be squaring Pluto. So Mercury, what we think, what we analyze, creating that angle of tension of looking at themes around control and victimhood, that's no accident. That angle of tension is saying, hey, on this full moon, go there. Look at this. Analyze this. Consider this. Don't shy away. And finally, bring it all together and participate on this full moon. By yes, participating in life with others, but also with yourself, because that is ultimately where your answers lie. All right, I hope that's been helpful, and I hope it makes you excited for this Aries full moon. I know I am. So, we are coming off some very intense week with the eclipses, and last week's first quarter in Capricorn was the first step. Now, Capricorn is all about taking on full responsibility. If you watch that video, you'll know I was talking about that. And really, Aries energy is very similar in that it is self-sourced, initiatory energy. Capricorn and Aries are both what we call cardinal signs. They are signs that start seasons, all right? Aries starts spring, Capricorn starts winter. But they are signs that take charge, so to speak. And really, the moon is working with us here after these eclipses, which were full of malleable energy, actually. They were in mutable signs, which are signs that end seasons. And so that represents we're changing energy from one season to the next. That's what the eclipse energy was about. Well, now we're being called to shift into that something new that the eclipses were kind of pushing us to. So shift into it and really claim it. If it feels daunting, that's okay. That's how it's supposed to feel. I'll admit it. I feel it too. But that's why I love being the moon phase astrologer, because I looked into this and I see the pattern. I see, oh, okay, I'm supposed to feel this way, but now I am also supposed to feel a little discomfort and claim it. It really does truly help us make sense of the world and navigate these daunting feelings in a much more mindful way. So now that you've gotten the message from the moon and you have all of this awareness, I would love to hear from you. What is this bringing up in you? What do you think you're being called to claim? Is there anything in victim consciousness that you are being called to finally shed, so that from now until early 2028, when we've got this amazing opportunity to lead in the way that we are uniquely qualified, what are you going to do? I'd love to know. Drop it in the comments below. All right, I'm sending you lots of love and support on this Aries full moon. And until next week, as always, take care.